You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
This is the No Doubt About It podcast.
No doubt about it.
And now your hosts, Christy and Mark Ronchetti.
Wildfire, you can't catch us now. Running.
Okay. So I may have tricked you into taking a supplement right before we got on today.
Right.
I'm taking this thing called methylene blue.
All right.
And I'm really new at taking it. I've had some health concerns the last about a year or so. And the medication they want to give me, I don't want to take it. So this is one of the recommended alternatives. However, it does turn your teeth and tongue potentially blue.
Right.
I gave it to Mark right before the show. I'm making him take it too.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty lightheaded right now.
Oh, no. So if you go down for the count, it's not my fault.
Is that one of the side effects of this stuff?
Well, some of the side effects that they say are like it really can clear up your senses really fast.
Oh, yeah, I can see through walls.
No.
Great.
Like your nasal passages, apparently, is one of the things that like you will.
I smell a coyote about a mile away.
You'll be able to see through walls, apparently.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know all the details, but I have studied it for about 4 or 5 months before I started taking it. And you wanted to try it. I'm not forcing it on you.
No, true. I don't know what the situation is.
There's supposed to
here.
be a lot of, it's been around since the 1800s.
All I know is I'm just like, it's like I had a couple of beers, fired them down.
Well, it shouldn't do that. It's supposed to make you hyper alert. And I might have just made yours too strong. I don't know. So
yeah, I don't know that I feel hyper alert.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully.
I feel like a couple Red Bulls deep right now on an empty stomach.
Well, I fed you breakfast.
Yeah, I know. I don't have an empty stomach. I get it. But
you do have blue teeth that match your blue shirt, though. You're welcome, everybody.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, so I don't know that what I'm going to say is going to make sense at all. I'll give you a quick preview of what's ahead on the show. Don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of the show.
Oh my
quite
gosh,
frankly.
This is getting dramatic now.
We'll see what happens here.
Listen, I'm trying to figure out dosage, all right, people?
Oh, yeah,
So
apparently, and you're testing it on me. I'm like a lab rat over here.
I'm not taking as much as Mark, but if there is, if there's an actual doctor out there that knows what we should take for methylene blue, please let me know.
Unreal. And you're like, it has no flavor. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty nasty, best I can tell.
Oh, please. All that pre-workout stuff that you drink, that stuff tastes terrible.
Man, my pre-workout stuff's pretty mild, though, actually. I don't
This
take
does
high
not have that
caffeine.
much. It's just blue. It's like it's like an Easter egg dye.
Oh,
Basically.
no, it is. Yeah,
Like
no,
we could
and
dye our Easter eggs.
nothing cooler than like super deep blue Easter eggs. That's always my favorite as a kid.
Yeah, it's
I'd
really
leave
pretty.
the Easter egg in the deep blue dye.
Yeah.
It was always awesome. Okay, so a couple of different things. We're going to talk about some of the interesting goings on at the hands off marches here in New Mexico.
Hands off, everybody.
Hands off,
Hands
everyone.
off what? I'm not still.
Hands off government corruption. Hands off.
Okay, hands off.
Let us spend what we want. Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
Keep the gravy train rolling.
That's right.
Okay,
Keep the
got
griff,
it.
Keep the griff going. Everybody.
Okay, keep it going. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to dive in. Look, the economy and what's going to happen to the markets tomorrow, what's going to happen with the economy, it is swallowing up everything. Everybody going all different sorts of ways talking about these tariffs. Where is Trump going with this? We talked about it on the last episode. There are some platforms that definitely didn't allow us to advertise the episode the way we wanted to.
Right.
So if you can go back and check out that last episode, you can do that. But we're going to have even a more comprehensive episode today that I think is important to everybody if you care about the economy, which everybody does. And understanding what is at play here is fascinating, and we'll do that.
Yeah, and let me just make a little a little production note on that. Because some of the platforms, one platform in particular, pushes our content down when they don't either agree with it. We're not even sure what the deal is.
Yeah, I don't know that they don't. I don't even get it.
We don't get it. We don't get that.
But this
algorithm.
definitely was
Throttled.
trim back.
Yeah, this was throttled. So if you want to make sure that you get all of our episodes, 2 things you could do. You could subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe. And additionally, go to our website, which is no doubt about it podcast.com, and just sign up for our email. We do not spam you. I don't have any control over that email database, by the way. So once you sign up, you have to remove yourself if you don't want to get the emails anymore. But we only send an email for our show. And it's got a direct link in it for you to watch the show in all different kinds of ways. So if you want to stay up to date on when our shows come out, and you don't want to have to think about it, and sometimes shows get throttled down and you don't hear about it for a few days and you're wondering where we've gone, we haven't gone anywhere. get that email and you'll have direct access to it. And we send those out the day that the show goes out. So, or the day after, one or the other.
Yep.
So,
so just something to know there. But we're going to get into an incredible thread that was on X that usually we don't go into this kind of depth, but I think it's really important. Then we're going to listen to what Scott Bessent said about what's happening. He's Treasury Secretary, right? And what he said about what's going on here. And I just think it's really interesting. And then some other information on that and what you need to know about the bigger picture here and why. Who knows what's going to happen with this? And there's a lot of risk for Trump in this, a lot. Like he is putting his whole administration on the line. We talked about that last episode. But to see what has to happen here and the different things that have to fall into place, you will be amazed by what this gambit is. And it is a gambit on his part. And can he pull it off? We don't have any idea. And we're not here to tell you that he can or he can't, because if I sit here and try to tell you that I'm an economist, you know that's garbage. I'm not, right? I'm an ist, but not an economist. So obviously, we're going to give you as much information as we can. We're walking through this like you are, as your average citizens trying to figure out what's going on. And so that's why we're going to give you as much detail as we possibly can on this whole deal. And it is in depth. We'll go through it here, but I think you'll like it. You'll like what Bessent has to say too, because it's really, really interesting here. And I just think he presents things in a way that makes sense. The logic makes sense. Now, will it play out the way the White House wants it to and the way, if you're a normal American, you want it to? I don't know.
Right.
And so there's a very real opportunity. It doesn't. There maybe have to be some adjustments. We'll talk about that sort of stuff. We'll talk about what's going on. There's some polling out that shows two totally different outcomes out there. Some polls say this announcement that Trump made on the tariffs actually has boosted his standing, and some say that it is not.
Interesting.
And by the way, criticism on this, coming from both sides, you're getting a lot of people on the left, obviously, who don't like it because it's Trump. And then on the right, people like Ben Shapiro melting down over this. And Ben Shapiro's a smart guy. But, he's really concerned about it.
I feel like people that are melting down, quote, melting down, that are, usually a conservative sort, I think they're melting down because that stock market has been tanking, that is a concern for folks that either are close to retirement, have retired, or just follow their stock markets like every single day.
I get it. I get it. But a day or two of the stock. Now, believe me, we could get to Monday tomorrow. We could get to Monday and there could be a total meltdown. Like there's one person saying there's going to be a total meltdown.
Yeah,
if something doesn't. So we'll talk about that too. But I want to start with this.
And we also have some local news just to make sure.
Yeah, the mayor's in trouble, right?
The mayor. Well, is he in trouble?
He may not be.
I mean, honestly, if we could ever call him on his stuff, maybe he might get in trouble. But we have some information and a story that's been broken about basically a report that's being hidden from citizens, or it appears to be being hidden from citizens, that could shed some light on waste and fraud on our just here in the city of Albuquerque, and what some people are doing to try to cast light on that and make sure that report gets out to the public. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So
okay,
let's dive in though. Let's get into some of these comments.
Well, the first one we've had a clip on Instagram take off a little bit. I've been getting a lot of people kind of jumping back at me on it, and I want to play just a little bit of this clip from Instagram. And then I want to explain something here and what I think is going on. This is a clip about what's going on with the tariffs in Japan, okay? And just a little portion of that clip. Toyota sells 1 million cars in the United States with virtually no tariff barrier. Go to Japan. Try to buy an American car. You can't. You can't. They don't allow it. Right? And so it's like, well, wait a minute. What are we doing? You don't have a right to this market. You don't have a right to just shred us. And so as a country, it's happened time after time. Now, the question is, when you reorient things like this and you go to Japan and you say, hey, okay, you know what? You're going to have to pay 25% tariff. Or in Japan's case, my guess is you're going to see more factories built in this country from Toyota. Okay, right. That's what you're going to see. That's part of what I was talking about. Number one, a few things here. First of all, a lot of what Japan does is not a straight tariff. Okay, there are a lot of barriers to the entry of our goods in Japan that have nothing to do with tariffs. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, one of the big comments from people was, well, Japanese don't want to buy our cars because we make junk cars. And I just could not disagree with that more. And everybody talks about the Japanese cars are, Toyota makes an incredible car. By the way, as someone who owns 2 Toyota cars right now and has owned probably 5 in the last 10 years, okay, I'm sorry, but Toyota, okay, you literally, if you hop in a Tahoe, a Chevy Tahoe, and you drive around for a day and then you hop in a Toyota 4Runner, it is a different world, and not in a good way for the Toyota 4Runner. I mean, and again, and when you, in some of the other comments were all, well, you know, they make their cars here too. Both Toyotas that we've ordered in the past 3 years had to be made in Japan before they came here. Okay. Your car right now is a Toyota. You hit the gas on your car, which is a Land Cruiser, and the car looks at you and is like, what? Right. And then you go, I had a 4Runner driving around in a tin box. Ava currently drives a Toyota, which regularly needs work. This whole thought process that you get a Toyota and you change the oil and that sucker's good for 300,000 miles. Garbage. Not true. Okay, it's not true. And the Toyota of 10 years ago is not the Toyota of today. The Land Cruiser of 10 years ago is not the Land Cruiser of today. America makes some great cars. Now, whether they choose to drive them or not in Japan is their choice, right? But the thought process that we should not have any sort of ability to be able to say, look, access to the number one market in the world comes with a price. Okay? I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Now, that price may be zero on both sides. That absolutely could be the case. And that's what I think a lot of people want. I understand that argument. All I'm saying is America does make a good quality car. And if you actually drive Toyotas versus, say, a Chevy, I'm sorry, but if you drive SUVs, America makes a better SUV than Toyota does. GM makes a better SUV. Ford makes a better SUV than Toyota does. Truck isn't even close. Don't come to me with this Tacoma garbage. And don't come to me with, especially the bigger version, right? And it's not the Tacoma, it's the Toyota Tundra, which is the engine on that is garbage. I mean, I'm sorry. So this whole thing, I was reading the comments. I usually don't read the comments.
No, you don't.
And I dove into the comments on this. Like, wait a minute. I'm not saying the Japanese should buy as many cars as we buy from them. I totally get that. They're not going to. And plus, they don't need big SUVs like we do. It's a different country. We're a much bigger country, much further distances, everything else, a million different things. However, access to this market does need to be paid for by some degree, and that helps the American worker and bring in more factories here and everything else. That I agree with. Now, will all this work? Is it the right thing to do? I don't know. We don't try to pretend we know that. But I just wanted to say that real quick, and then I'll move on.
We're not letting you on our Instagram account anymore, Mark. You're not allowed to read the comments anymore from people because
no, I mean, there are plenty of people like Go America and everything else.
We could do days of shows of comments from our
I know,
posts.
and it's best I don't look at them. But I'm just saying that if you actually drive Toyotas versus reading a narrative, which we do, we drive a Toyota, we drive an American. I drive an American car right now. You drive a Toyota right now. Ava drives a Toyota-made car. Ella drives an American car.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had, like, my first car was a Subaru, and I swear that was the best car I ever had. But it was also made in the 70s. So.
Yeah, and Subaru, look, we've had Subarus too. And Subaru WRX is one of my favorite cars on the planet. Mm-hmm. It's tremendous. It's great in the snow. The pickup is fantastic. It's great sporty car.
It's actually too fast for you. We do not need it. We don't need that anymore.
And I agree, Subaru makes a good car. But if you're getting in a car and you're getting you want a car that drives well on roads, but there are some great American cars.
Yeah, my Tahoe, which you sold. Anyway, we're going to talk about that later.
All right, let's move quick and get through these. Yeah,
let's move on from the car
Sorry,
show.
I just wanted to say that on that.
Mark's a big car guy. If you haven't figured that out by now.
I just know. It's just Toyota.
If you're shopping for a car, let Mark know. He loves secretly to shop for cars.
No, Toyota criminally underpowers their cars. And they ride rougher and they ride louder.
Okay.
And American cars, you get in them, especially a nice American SUV, and it is a different level car.
I'm the one that told you that before you sold my car. Anyway, let's move on to other comments. Okay. Marianne, she said, thank you for the great explanation of the tariffs. You helped clarify this complicated and urgently important issue. Thank you both. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you so much. And then Sandra wrote in, excellent way of explaining this tariff situation. We'll also look up the DOGE interview with Fox. I hope you did. I still swear that was a great interview. And then Perry says, robotics is the future and will solve labor issue. The technology is already here and can work 24/7, becoming very affordable, meaning that was in direct response to us talking about, can these manufacturing companies actually come to America? Will there be people here to work in those companies? And he's basically saying AI, robotics, that will fill in the large gap there. So thank you for writing in on that one.
And more of those companies may require less and less people, but at the same time, if you bring enough of them back, you'll get a good workforce with it, and you'll bring the cost down. You won't have individual people. In other words, you pay Americans more than you pay people in, say, Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And so the point would be, can robotics equal that playing field a little bit? Right. Which is really smart comment.
Okay, and then this person, he wrote in and said, I can't afford much right now. It's going to be tough getting through this. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we totally feel that. Like, we understand exactly where you're coming from on that as well. Like, no, there's still so much unknown about this. And I think we just want to try to explain what we're pulling from it and what we're understanding the whole situation to be. And then we'll just keep reporting on it and telling people, like, we'll follow things and see it.
Well, no, that's the huge risk, right?
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
huge
if
risk.
this doesn't work, then people that are really on the edge because of higher prices anyway, it's gonna be a disaster for them. Absolutely, this is a huge deal, and so that's why there is so much concern and pushback. Some of it legitimate, some of it political. It just depends, right? And speaking of political, so let's get to these hands-off events that were all over the country on Saturday. Here's the venerable Deb Haaland giving her speech in downtown Albuquerque. Big crowd, about 3,000 people in Albuquerque for this. Was a big crowd, and she gave her talk and went through the whole deal and did whatever she was going to do and did it. But here's a little bit of what that sounded like in Albuquerque, which fair amount of people here. Okay, so.
Still don't. Okay, well, let's play Teresa Fernandez's clip first, because maybe she will explain what hands off really means. Let's find out.
Because she is the venerable Teresa Ledger Fernandez, our 3rd congressional district rep, who
I believe this one was in Santa Fe.
Yeah, this was in Santa Fe, and she's just riling up the crowd. And I'll tell you what, some people, when you give them the mic, they tear it up.
Okay, we are here because we are here to say, hands off everything we love. Hands off everything.
We love. What is that?
And it says, hands off our democracy. Hands off trans rights. Hands off our union. Hands off our youth. Hands off our environment.
Hands off our firemen? What?
Stop. Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
sorry.
so lost.
Well, no, hold on. The minute she said, what did she say that she sounded like?
Hands off everything we love.
Love. She sounded like Al Pacino. She's like, hoo-ah. Like, what is
Little
that?
sin of the woman. I don't know.
Little sin of a woman. It's fantastic.
I guess I'm just lost. I had friends sending me pictures of this yesterday, and
Sure.
And I'm like, hands off what exactly? Like, I'm missing the point. Like, I'm sorry, it's rich coming from this party that loves heavy government spend, heavy government, big government, as much government as we can, heavy government jobs. Let's load the state full of government jobs. Now we want the government hands off.
Well, no,
we want hands off our firemen. I don't know. I am so lost on that one.
Don't get your hands off the firemen.
Hands off our democracy. What?
Yeah.
Hands off our bodies. Hands off. I mean, I guess I'm really struggling with whoever put this PR campaign together.
But it continues with the thread of just raw opposition. That's what this is. It's just pure. And again, one thing they will be able to tap into, which is there is concern. There's legitimate concern because you are literally reordering the economy, which we're about to get to.
You think that they planned this rally that is national in response to the tariff plan?
No.
They didn't.
No. But my point was that no, absolutely not.
So it's just hands off government for, I don't know.
Yeah, hands off government, period. Let them do what they want.
Charge?
No question.
So,
no question.
hands
Like,
off.
don't cut anything. Keep the grift going. Like, let us have our money. Let us do what we want. Keep going toward the financial cliff. We don't care. Like, that's what we just lived through 4 years of.
Yeah.
And $2 trillion spending deficits every single year. Like it's just crazy. You can't do it. It doesn't matter. This is again just pure opposition. So that's what I'm saying. It's just opposition, right? And so they don't care about the facts. Well, the problem is too that this is not just on that side. So Ava, do you have something you'd like to add?
I do. I just made an observation here. One of these signs says Voldemort is back.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say that I think it's childish because I haven't seen a lot of Republicans when they protest compare real people to fictional villains, but I see a lot of Democrats do it all the time.
Yeah, you like the Voldemort.
I just think it's stupid, and I just wanted to bring it up because it's like,
because you're a Harry Potter fan, so watch out.
well, partially, but also like the best thing you can come up with is Voldemort. You can't actually name an actual policy.
It's interesting, right?
It's just asinine.
So there were some people who went around and just started asking questions like, what are your problems here? And again, what you start to find out is that there is a real deficit in understanding, or a gap between the understanding of the policy and the advocacy of what you want. right? There's a gap there. So it's Trump. It's Trump. I don't like Trump. So that's what a lot of this is. That's why the goal of this show over the past few weeks has been, we want to educate you. So then you say, okay, yeah, I get it. There's a risk in all of this. There's a huge risk. Here's the risk. Here's the idea. And here's where we're going. So that's what we're trying to do, so that when a mic is stuck in someone's face, Ava, they don't come back and say, I don't like Trump, right? I mean, that's not good enough. It's not good enough, because your future's on the line here. If we continue with $36 trillion in debt and $2 trillion every single year, you're done. Like, you're not going to have anything as far as Social Security goes. We're not going to be able to afford Medicare and Medicaid. We're not going to be able to afford any of those things.
And
So-
I guess I think still that people, instead of actually understanding that, they just continue with the same mantra. He's coming after Medicaid. He's going to kill your Social Security. Instead of actually listening to the people that are
Right.
running DOGE, which we did talk about the earlier episode. If you missed it, please go back and listen to that first episode. The episode last, what is today? Sunday. So this came out on Wednesday. And we really hammer what DOGE actually is making those cuts for. So our state now is involved in a major lawsuit. Dig into that. Figure it out. Like, the cuts, if you're in favor of promoting the cuts still, like, you're saying, no, we need to keep this fraudulent spend, when you actually recognize they're spending $1 billion on a survey monkey for national parks that goes nowhere, like, pay attention to where this waste is actually being cut. It's not like people are being thrown out in the streets and have no jobs anymore. So it's ludicrous. to a
Well,
large degree.
no, and your point's a good one, which is that if you constantly say, oh, they're getting rid of Social Security, no, they're not, and
No,
everybody
they're
knows
not.
they're not. So, but again, that hurts
The
their
doom and gloom.
Well, that hurts their own point, right? That's the thing they don't realize. What they don't realize is when you jump in with this, Social Security's gone, Medicaid's gone, it's all gone. Oh, okay, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
And then
No,
the
they
longer
found
you
20
say
million
that,
people that are fraudulently using Social Security.
Well.
That's what they cut. So far, that's what they've cut.
okay, but it isn't fair to say, though, that this is just, people on the left saying this. This is the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Abe, let's just tighten in on this. Now, the one thing about the Wall Street Journal, if you read the news pages, it's pretty far left, actually. But it's the opinion page that is more right-centered, the Wall Street Journal. But I'm going to read you a couple quick headlines. Trump tariffs are a major legal question. Free trade didn't kill the middle class. Trump owns the economy now. And then you just keep on going down, and it says, U.S. tariffs make Xi Jinping's day. This is all the same day in the Wall Street Journal. It's actually this morning. And then Jim Cramer today comes out and says this. Now, there are plenty of people that laugh about Jim Cramer's predictions, but still, Jim Cramer's not a dumb guy. And he's even said and supported some support for tariffs, right? So who knows? We'll see. But he says, host warns Black Monday market crash over Trump's tariffs rivaling the record 87 collapse if something doesn't work out here over the next few days. He's worried that things will continue to collapse.
Okay, now, and I'm not some stock market genius by any stretch, as I got, killed, 25 years ago by you when I bought Target stock thinking it was going to be great, and you guys made so much fun of me, I sold it immediately. Anyway, all that to say, I know very little about the stock market. However, when you see things like this, does it not lead people immediately to be calling their brokers first thing Monday morning to sell
Not
so
if
they don't
they're
lose?
smart.
I know. But I think when you put out warnings like this, people panic and try to unload, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know.
People
who
that
knows?
don't know enough about, like, hey, stocks do come back, but, like, I don't know.
Half of Americans don't own stocks, first and foremost.
Okay.
Okay. So that's part of this. And then the other half that do have some experience in this where, it's we lost $6 trillion in the market. Well, yeah, you did if you sold, but you've got to wait and see. I'm not saying this isn't a big deal. I'm saying it could be a very big deal. And this is what we're about to get into.
Okay.
Okay. That this could be a huge deal that could completely blow up in Trump's face. But you should know the logic behind it. And there's a detailed set of tweets or a thread on Twitter or X, okay? And it's from Tanvi Ratna, okay? And she does economy stuff. And Bill Ackman actually retweeted this out and said a really interesting explanation. He's a hedge fund guy, super smart guy. And so I read this and I was just fascinated by it. And usually we wouldn't go through what I'm about to go through, but she does a really good job. So I'm going to move fairly quickly on this, but I want you to just kind of stick with me and listen to some of the logic on this. And Abe will kind of close in on this so people can read it if they want to. But I just want to go through all this, and I think you'll find it to be pretty interesting. So first and foremost, she starts off by saying Trump's new tariffs aren't a trade tweak. They're the first move in a full spectrum reset. Now, the first point she makes is one we have made on this show before, and that is $9.2 trillion in debt matures this year. Okay, the interest rates. If we if we go and we refinance this thing, there's a good chance we get killed on the interest rate if the interest rate stays high like they've been. Remember, to get everything under control with all the inflation under Biden, they raised interest rates through the roof. Okay, well, guess who's also a borrower? The government, right? And so when you have to redo your debt, if you go to a higher number, you're in real trouble. Okay, so this is the start of everything. You realize we have to redo the debt. We're spending way too much money. And so if we don't do something, we're in real bankruptcy problems, right? Just easiest way to say it. Okay, so it says it starts with the debt. The $9.2 trillion must be refinanced in 2025. If rolled into a 10-year bond, every 1 basis point drop in rate saves approximately $1 billion a year. So a 0.5% drop would save $500 billion over a decade. What does that mean? It just means that if the interest rates come down, which is critical, okay, then it's cheaper to borrow that money, okay? The interest rates have to come down. And so that's a problem here, okay? So how to push yields down? How do you do it? How do you bring interest rates down? That's hard to do because right now it hasn't been done, right? They've been kind of like, oh, you start to see inflation go back up so they can't cut interest rates. So Trump is caught in a tough spot. So what they do is they manufacture uncertainty, she says. Sweep in with tariffs, spook the market, trigger risk off, and then money exits the stocks and floods into long-term treasuries. Okay, what does that allow for then? That allows for the Fed to say, okay, we can cut interest rates. So all of this, the sudden, Trump has said, we got to have some uncertainty, as this is at least Tanvi's take. That we got to have some uncertainty, bring the market back a little bit, slow and cool the economy. That's what's trying to happen here, is cool down the economy so that allows you to cut interest rates. Okay, does that make sense so far?
Yep.
Okay, and then she says, but cheap refinancing isn't enough on its own. The debt remains enormous. So what's the other thing we've talked about from the very beginning, that you not only have to bring down interest rates, but you also have to cut
all the waste and fraud coming in with DOGE, right? So it says cheap refinancing isn't enough on its own. Even at lower rates, the debt remains enormous. That's where the next lever comes in cutting the deficit. Elon Musk and at DOGE are cutting $40 billion per day.
$4 billion per day.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. $4 billion per day. And at that pace, they'd shave off $1 trillion by the end of September 25th, if not May, which is basically the amount of time that he allocated to work with DOGE, right? That he originally signed up to work with DOGE.
So let's listen to what Musk says about that, right? So here's what Elon Musk is saying about what DOGE is trying to do, and are they on track to do this second part?
We're just here trying to make government more efficient, eliminate waste and fraud. And so far, we're making good progress, actually. So our savings at this point exceed $4 billion a day. Mm-hmm. So it's very significant.
You think you'll wind up getting to $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Of savings?
I mean, unless we're stopped, we will get to $1 trillion of savings.
Okay, right there. That's good enough. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that puts us, okay, so that's part number 2, right? So you've got to cool the economy, bring down interest rates so we can refinance the debt, and then you've got to cut spending, getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, hopefully $1 trillion. And again, we got a $2 trillion deficit each year. So we want to take half that and just waste, fraud, and abuse. Mm-hmm. Okay, all these terrible things DOGE are doing, that's what they're trying to do.
It's terrible.
Right? Okay, so then tariffs come in, she says, as a trigger for domestic industrial revival. The thinking is, by making imports expensive, you create room for U.S. producers to step in. But here's the problem, okay? American producers can't step in overnight. They can't scale up overnight. So in the short term, consumers will face higher prices, and the administration knows this, okay? So that's why they're front-loading the pain now, betting that by 2026, the benefit will be visible. So what do you do in the meantime? So with these tariffs, no one's saying prices won't go up at all with the tariffs. They don't know how much, but they're saying, okay, we know prices are going up. So what do we do? Because we got 26 coming up, right? So you say, if you just jack prices on people and that's it, well, you got a problem. You're going to get destroyed in 26. So what can you possibly do to help offset that?
Well, it says that they're trying to offer maybe some tax cuts.
Bingo.
Which is what Trump's talked about quite a bit. It says in the meantime, they're offering some near-term relief. Tax cuts have already been floated to help offset the cost burden on households While risky, currency devaluation may follow later to make imports cheaper without lifting the tariffs.
Okay, so let's listen to Trump. What does he say about these tax cuts?
And now we're going to pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that's where we're relying on Mike and John Thune. And we will not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid benefits, and the Democrats will, because if they got in, the entire economy would collapse. This country is heading for a collapse.
Okay, so again, Trump always rounding back to we're not cutting your entitlements, right? But we are going to cut taxes to give you a break from what's likely going to be boost prices because of tariffs, because of the other stuff we have to do. This is what I mean by all these different things playing in, right? This is all the deal. Now, we're also getting money from the tariffs, and she mentions this as well. Her next little stream of information here, and she's going to give a number of $700 million in this ex post. She means $700 billion, but go ahead.
Don't forget, tariffs also bring in the revenue. Estimates suggest that they could raise over $700 billion within the first year. That's not a game changer on its own, but it gives the Treasury a bit more room to maneuver, especially if paired with deficit cuts.
Yes. Okay. And then there's an estimate here, and you can see this. Actually, she may have meant 700 million, but the 700 billion we're talking about, you and I are talking about. Here's one of the articles that where this was mentioned. It says capital economists estimate the import tax outlines in President Trump's Wednesday afternoon are likely to annually generate 700 billion. Yeah. So I think she meant 700 billion. Yeah. Okay. So that's what they're trying to do. Again, that 700 billion added to 1 trillion, you're getting close to your deficit, by the way, getting rid of it. But anyway, but that's the thinking, right? So that's some of the thinking in this whole thing. But here's where this all comes down, right? This is still very risky.
It says, still, this approach isn't without risks. If domestic supply chains can't catch up or if the global retaliation kicks in, inflation could rise again. And if that happens, the Fed may be forced to raise rates, which would blow a hole in the low-yield plan, and that's the tightrope.
A common critique is why impose tariffs before building out the capacity to replace it, right? And it says, but that assumes the tariffs are the end goal, and they're not. They're the starting gun, a way to force movement both inside the U.S. and around the world. Which brings us to geopolitics. Before tariffs, Trump's team signaled a global order reset, pulling back from NATO, cooling EU ties, opening diplomatic space with Russia and Saudi Arabia. Tariffs now serve as leverage to renegotiate terms based on America First policies. Expect a lot of bilateral deals in the coming months. Tariffs will be lowered for countries that offer strategic concessions, trade, security, industrial policy. Those that resist, they'll pay a higher cost until they decide to come to the table. And of course, China is a focal point in all of this. There's no doubt they're going to be a focus on this whole deal. So the U.S. economy, when we talk about all this, they're going to be clear winners and losers as well.
Right. And they're basically saying observers have long argued that China isn't a poor country. It's a wealthy, high-capacity state that floods markets with exports in its currency artificially low. Tariffs could be used to force big moves like currency appreciation by China. Lines will be redrawn with other allies, too. Europe may be pushed to cut exposure to China or negotiate on Ukraine. India may be forced to cut tariffs and move closer to U.S. alignment. Mexico and Canada could also face demand to crack down on fentanyl and trafficking routes.
So those are the, some of the good and bad globally. But even here in the country, steel, auto, textiles, they're likely to benefit from all this, right? Bringing these jobs back. But tech, retail, and construction sectors, she says, could be more reliant and then take a hit, especially in some of these swing states. So she kind of wraps this up to say, look, there's a huge gamble here. And the big picture says lower yields ease the debt, spending cuts restore fiscal discipline, tariffs jumpstart the economic growth locally and throughout the country, and geopolitics gets rewritten in America's favor. It's disruption by design, okay? So it can work because you get the debt under control, you manufacture more things here, okay? Global leverage is restored, and Trump is vindicated in 2026 or maybe 2028.
Okay.
Or it goes wrong. Inflation ticks back up. Retaliation from other countries, which China's already said they're going to do. You lose the midterms, so the House is going to impeach Trump again. That'll just happen. And strategic drift. Everybody goes, where are we going? What really happened here? Did you blow up the economy? This is a massive gambit, right? Massive. Okay, and so that's what this is. And as we've said on the show a million times, some is policy-based. Some is political-based. You've got to do both. right? You've got to handle the politics of it while handling the policy portion. And I think the best thing the administration did over the past few days is put Scott Bessent out to talk to Tucker Carlson. He's an excellent carrier of the message, and not because he's a dynamic communicator, but because he lays out some of this policy in a very coherent way.
So he's basically saying we need to do this big overhaul or we're going to have an economic disaster. I thought this interview was really good. If you want to go on and listen to the full interview with Tucker Carlson, I learned a lot about things I knew nothing about.
Yeah, it's an excellent interview. It's an hour long. And not everybody listens to Tucker, and I've got some problems with the way Tucker feels about certain things.
Right.
But there's no doubt this was a fascinating interview, and this clip you pulled is a good one.
Okay, so let's take a look into this very first one about just what's at stake here and why we have to start switching gears.
Would have been really fun for me to come in and just keep issuing a lot of debt. And it's almost like a bodybuilder is taking steroids. Outside looks great. You're muscular. Inside, you're killing your vital organs. Yeah. That's what was going on here. But it would have been easy to keep pumping up the economy, borrowing a lot of money, creating a lot of government jobs. There was no controversy when we're doing all that. But you were going to end up in a calamity. If you go back and look, you look at the financial crisis in 07, 08, economy looked great right up until then. You go back and you look at the end of the dot-com bubble and then the whole credit problem with the fraud at WorldCom, Enron, some other companies. Economy looked great until it didn't. And I think one of the things that we won't get credit for, but that this administration will have done, is avoiding a financial calamity.
So that's super interesting because, again, put that in contrast with what you're seeing on the other side and everybody's saying leave things the way they are. You can't leave things the way they are. Right. Not with $36 trillion in debt, not with a deficit every year of $2 trillion, not with interest rates going up, not with any manufacturing here. You just can't do this. You can't continue to do what we're doing. And so he's just saying, he's right, they'll never get credit. But this will be one of those deals where we're hopefully, if it works, and there's no one who should root against this unless you're an absolute sociopath. Right. Then you don't want this to work. We want this to work to get us on better footing. I don't care what side of the political aisle you are on. You do not want 2008 or worse happening again. I don't care who you are. That's mass suffering.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then he said that there's just a big wealth gap that we need to be taking into consideration when we think about this. That really, what is it, like the top 1% move the money kind of around in our country, something to that degree.
Well, top 2% have 50% of the wealth.
Right. And so he's like, listen, that's great. I'm happy for those, but we have to take care of everybody in this country.
And that's not what Republicans used to sound like.
Correct. So take a listen to this one.
I'm not happy with what's going on in the market today, but the distribution of equities across households, the top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities, 88% of the stock market. The next 40% owns 12% of the stock market. The bottom 50 has debt. They have credit card bills. They rent their homes. They have auto loans, and we've got to give them some relief. That I was struck by the statistic from last year.
That's the message right there. Just as a bystander, I'm like, wow, okay.
All right. Or that I like the examples, and I was really struck by two different statistics last year. Summer of 2024, Americans took more European vacations than they had in history. Summer of 2024, more Americans were using food banks than they ever have in history. I went into two food banks near my hometown to ask, what's the story? And they said, it really takes, for a lot of people, it's a loss of dignity to walk in a food bank. Of course. But they were seeing a new phenomenon, that it wasn't their traditional clientele. It wasn't people who'd lost their homes. It wasn't people out on the street. These were working families who could no longer, $100 at the grocery store, that basket of groceries every week, they were missing 5, 6, 7 things, and they were coming to the food bank to top up. So that's not a great America. record European vacation, record food banks.
That's really smart.
No
right?
reason
I mean,
we can't keep the record European vacations going.
Okay, but his point is really good. And again, it's a point that too often Republicans never made, and now they do, which is when you talk about hollowing out the middle class and you talk about young people right now, and we're going to show you the numbers in a second, that they're supporting these moves now in higher numbers because they do get it. You get young people that are making really good salaries, $80,000 a year, can't afford a house. Not even close. Not even close. If you drive around Albuquerque, they're not building a ton of houses. They're building a ton of apartment complexes.
Right.
Right? And that's a difference, right? And so I'm just saying that this messaging and people thinking, oh my gosh, the economy's in stock market's in trouble. You don't get it. You got half of the people who don't even know what you're talking about with the stock market. I don't have that money sitting there. And so when you try to reorient these things, you really are watching something trying to reset this whole thing. And again, I'll say it again, I don't know that it will work. I hope it will work, but I don't know. But you look at that and you see that the people that have become incredibly wealthy in this country are two sectors. Tech sector, which is incredible, and we need to continue to feed that. But there's also the people who just move money, right? They just move money, and they're incredibly wealthy for figuring out how to move money. I get all that. I don't begrudge that. But we need a lot more people that are able to support their families on good paying American jobs that have left the country to some degree. And we have to get them back, the ones that we can. Can't get them all back, but we have to try.
Okay. And the other thing that I've pulled from this article or this interview that I thought was pretty terrifying, actually, is that one thing that COVID did teach us was just how bad our supply chain can be impacted because of how much we're relying on our products coming in from other countries, products that are very important, like medicine. So take a listen to this clip. I thought this was very important as well for everybody to be aware of.
We're going to reindustrialize, that we have gone to a highly financialized economy. We have
moving money.
We have stopped making things, especially a lot of things that are relevant for national security. I think one of the few good outcomes from COVID was we had a beta test for what maybe a kinetic war with a large adversary could look like. And it turned out that these highly efficient supply chains were not strategically secure. So that we don't make our own medicines, that we don't make our own semiconductors, that we don't make our own ships anymore. So I think if I were to say, like, was there any good outcome from COVID? It woke the world up to these supply chain problems. So economic security is national security. President Trump and I have talked about that a lot. So this is a national security issue that we're seeing here, but it's also an economic security issue.
Okay, exactly right. And remember, right after COVID, we talked about this. We talked about we can't keep getting everything from China. This is the adjustment.
Right.
Biden didn't do it at all. Didn't even address it.
No.
In any sort of significant way. So this is reality hitting us in the face, that we cannot be reliant on some of these countries for all these things. And so this is a reset with very laudable goals. Now, you don't judge policy by the goals. You judge it by the results.
Right.
So one of the big arguments is here comes a lot more inflation. Okay? But is that really true? Is that really true? So we're going to go to clip 31, Ava. Robert Lighthizer, who was one of Trump's advisors on this. He made an interesting point about the fact that he's not particularly worried about inflation, and here's why.
And I would add one other thing. If you look at the president's program generally, all right, the program is going to be tax cuts, spending cuts, deregulation, more energy, and tariffs. Now, even all but a hardcore partisan would say the combination of that can't be inflationary, right? The combination of cutting spending, getting rid of regulation, increasing energy, those things can't be inflationary. Now,
they're anti-inflationary.
They're all.
We have inflation because we've done the opposite. We made energy more expensive.
That's precisely right.
Spend too much.
Okay. So
it seems like
exactly right. Right. So that's super interesting stuff to think about. So is Lighthizer right? Well, there's some new information out on what's going on, and some of the trueflation numbers are pretty encouraging at this point, that they're staying pretty low. So will that continue? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But part of what we're talking about here in this whole deep dive is energy, right? Keeping energy low. Is energy lower? Energy's lower. Here's the prices. And in fact, we're at $61 for a barrel of crude oil. Okay, that's the lowest it's been in a long time for crude oil. Look at it drop off. That's the graph right there. And we are down significantly here. And it's going to likely continue to stay pretty low because of some deals with OPEC. So these things are playing out. We'll see what happens. I know this is kind of a deep, meandering thing, and there's more exciting topics as far as scintillating goes. But as far as making your payments and making sure we don't end up in a complete economic disaster, this is the thought process. Again, I'm not telling you it's going to work.
Right.
So there you go. But this isn't necessarily something either that where if you read the Drudge Report, you would think everybody thinks Trump's headed down the wrong road. Everybody but maybe the American people. There is some other information on that.
Well, yeah, it says here that Americans are delivering shock verdict on Trump's controversial new tariffs, according to Daily Mail. If you want to take a look at this, it says an exclusive dailymail.com survey of over 1,000 registered voters conducted in March to April found that the Republican remains largely popular in the U.S. The poll found that Trump's approval rating rose to 53%, which is a 4-point increase over last week when it was only at 49%. Now, Trump's rising approval rating is surprising given the flack that the White House received over the tariff order signed Wednesday. It is up by 13 points since March 7 among those aged 18 to 29.
Okay, so super interesting there. He's up 13 points with young people, with young voters. Why? Because young voters have fewer options than their parents did right now, right? So they're saying, yeah, we need to do something. Now, do I think this poll is necessarily right? Maybe, maybe not. There are other polls that say other things.
Well, it's saying here that this President Trump job approval, it does show here.
Yeah, that's the one we were just talking about. Sorry, I added an extra one in there.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same one, right? It's the one that says 5347.
Right.
And that's the one from Jail Partners in the Daily Mail. But then there's one from Fabrizio Lee and Impact Research. So this is kind of a Republican-Democrat deal. Tony Fabrizio is Trump's pollster, okay? So this number is different, though.
Yeah, this national poll, it shows here a different look. It says here that actually 51% disapprove of President Trump right now, and they 52% disapprove of the economy. So I'm not sure. Which survey do we believe? Which poll are we going to believe?
Right. But all of this just gets back to our point, and we'll wrap this portion of it here, and that is just that very much up in the air. You couldn't have more negative feedback for what he's trying to do than what he's seen. I mean, and some of it coming from the right. I mean, so.
But here's the thing, the takeaway, I think, that whether you like exactly what you just said 5 minutes ago, right? Whether you like Trump or not, you need America, or you should want America to be successful, because therefore you're successful, your kids are successful, hopefully your grandchildren are. So why would we not all be hoping that this plan works and giving Trump some time to see if it does come together, right? Like, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, we have people that are like, well, this is ridiculous because he can't do this so fast. And like, there's no way we're going to take a major hit between now and then. He has been very honest in saying when he was running, he said, this is my game plan and there's going to be pain, but we have to reset or our country's going to go bankrupt. So I guess I think people need to recognize this is going to be painful. And it could come at some consequences, some higher prices for some things that you want it to be lowered right now, which are still going to be lower. But look at the energy prices. Eggs, by the way. Eggs have gone down, everybody.
Well, and the offset, right? The offset, which is the energy prices down, try to bring taxes down, try to balance it out, just to get yourself to where you want to go. But I think the argument would be from a variety of different people is this is not a smart way to go about doing it. It's too strong on the tariffs. It's too bold. It's too much. Who knows, right? So I think that's the argument, though. So the argument isn't that people don't want the country to do well. The argument would be, well, we just think he's doing it wrong, which is classic politics, right? You totally get that. But we'll see. I think you get into other territory with some people where they just want it to fail. There's no doubt. But you're always going to have those people. The hardcore partisans want someone who's not in their party to fail. Like, it doesn't matter whether America wins.
So that's the frustrating part, is like when you see these lawsuits coming after the DOGE taxes, the DOGE cuts, when you actually look at those cuts, I'm like, who can defend these? Who can say, no, we shouldn't be cutting these? Like, I don't understand and those are all available for everybody in the American can look. Anybody can look. It's on, DOGE's website. Very clear, very transparent. If you sit there and say, oh, that was a great use of my taxpayer dollars. I just don't know how anybody's doing that. Instead, all you hear is, we've got to fight back. We've got to fight back from the opposing side, getting people all riled up with their speeches and their tweets. And people that just disagree with Trump aren't taking the time to actually look and say, these cuts actually make sense.
Well, no, there's no question. I agree with you. That's why, again, it's a point we've made on the show a million times. When all you are is an oppositional party and you have no other vision, or your vision has been discredited because it did not work and it put people in a really bad position, that's your problem. And you've got to reorient what you're doing and then carry a message. Right now, they're still not carrying a message because they don't have one yet. They'll have one. Now, will that one be Trump failed? It could be. Right. Hopefully it won't be. But it could be, but hopefully for all of America, that won't be their case. Their case hopefully will be something else. They're like, yeah, well, it worked this time, but whatever. That's fine. Yeah. That's what you hope. But anyway, okay, last story.
Okay, this last story, this is about really the mayor facing some ethical questions in the way I read this article. This was in the Journal today. And it's basically that he's trying to kind of take away this inquiry that came up that shows fraudulent spend within this city hall of Albuquerque, right? So it's a city watchdog once investigations released. The City of Albuquerque Independent Watchdog Agency has issued an unusual public notice aimed at its Citizen Oversight Committee, which has yet to make public 9 finished internal investigations into alleged misconduct at City Hall. Okay, so basically...
So wait, explain this then. So what we have here is an investigation at City Hall, and then why isn't that just turned right out to people? Well, why is there not this independent group turns it out right away? There's another purview over this? Is that the deal?
Well, my understanding is that then before they can actually make this public, a committee gets together, has to approve this report for public consumption.
Who staffs the committee?
The mayor.
Oh.
Okay, so the mayor... And my understanding is that it's 4 city council people, or the city council people who have already backed the mayor are part of this committee. Now, until this committee meets, they can't issue the report. So they purposely did not, or I don't know if it's purposely or not, but what the article basically states is they haven't met since November. Okay. This report's been done, my understanding is before that. So they give the report again, this independent group gives this, it's basically the inspector general, gives this report to this committee in early March to read over because they know there's an upcoming March meeting. Well, what happened, according to this article, is that at this March meeting, they cut the meeting short and they did not address this issue at all.
Do we know what some of the findings were?
Well, yeah.
Roughly. What were they looking into? What were they trying to figure out?
Well, they're trying to find, one thing that they basically uncovered is they said, most recently, and this is number 42, Abe, if you want to show this up here, it says, most recently, the OIG reported uncovering nearly $300,000 in bonuses from a federal child care stabilization grant that went to 27 ineligible city employees, some of those high-ranking. The program was supposed to help child care providers defray unexpected business costs associated with the COVID pandemic.
Wait. So you've got $300,000 in a federal grant that ends up in the hands of some of his employees?
Well, it says 27 ineligible city employees, and some of those were high-ranking.
Jeez.
So now we need to see the report, right?
We don't know.
Everybody should see
you don't know.
And then I pulled this quote because I thought this was interesting. So this is our basically inspector general here locally, right? That has put this report together.
Yeah.
Now the National Association of Inspectors General, right? Okay, the national organization, they urge the release of pending reports. This is without further delay. This is number 43, Abe. It says, this is the quote from the National Association. For the Oversight Committee not even to hold meetings sends a clear message but unfortunate signal that it's not interested in learning of misconduct within the city of Albuquerque, let alone in formulating solutions to make the government operate more efficiently, wrote Will Fletcher, the president of the New York-based association, in a news release. This reluctancy holds back the mission of government oversight and inevitably raises questions about the commitment to transparency. So, and this is the sad part too, is the person that's here locally part of this, part of the internal investigation, basically looking at this and putting this report together. Her job is basically up in June, and she could be reconfirmed to add to her tenure. But the city has posted her job online.
So the city can bounce her.
So the city can bounce her.
The very person that's overseeing them.
Correct. And she's supposed to be this third party not partisan. It's just, it's so sneaky and slimy. It feels sneaky and slimy. It feels like the city is using money fraudulently. Fraudulently.
Right. That would be the thing. That would be the inference that could be drawn because you haven't actually given people real information yet.
Exactly. And so if you're innocent in all this, why would you not want this report to come to light? Right. And why do you have 4 city council members sitting here saying, we're not going to talk about this at this particular meeting? Like, it's like they're stalling. Yeah. It feels like, at least when you read this article, it feels like there's a big stall job, and then they are hoping to get this woman replaced in June when her job comes up. And then they can maybe say, oh, well, now this is all outdated and we're going to need a bigger report, more investigation. I don't know. The mayor's election is in November. It seems very sneaky. It seems...
Well, there's no doubt Darren White has to hit very hard against Keller to say, listen, release this stuff. We deserve to know.
Right.
And this should be on news organizations' radar. You know, every television station, obviously the Journal's already done it. Colleen Heil did it. She's a good reporter. And she digs in and does this. I'm sure you're going to see Jeff Tucker and the opinion page talk about this at some point. And the television stations need to step up. I wouldn't be surprised if Channel 7 were to step up and do a story on this.
Well, it should come out sooner than later because people, they're hoping the clock runs out is what it feels like to me. That they're hoping that enough time goes by that people like, oh, this is confusing. It's not confusing.
This is where it's on media to stand up and say, let's do this. I'd love to see someone like a Barker jump on this or somebody over at Channel 4 too, just to say, give us answers. And if there's nothing to this, then show it. Right. Show that there's nothing to it.
Exactly.
Maybe this thing inferred by the journal article or at least some information, it could be totally wrong. We could find out, wait a minute, no, that COVID money went to Tammy's childcare, and that's exactly where it should have gone, and we're going to find out it was great.
And then you can also push back on the city council members that are part of this committee.
That's a structural thing too. But yeah, that would.
I'd be interviewing them and saying why the hesitancy on releasing this report.
Right, but then that allows them to go to process, which I have a problem with. But then you say, well, why are you on this thing? Well, that's the process. They want to have the process argument with you. Forget the process argument. How about the argument of we got $300,000 here that was designed to help for childcare during COVID. Where's that money? And if it ended up with a single person in your administration who does not have a direct role in childcare, then what the heck is going on? And even if they do, that's a conflict of interest and they shouldn't be taking that money. They get paid a salary by the city. Where's the $300K? Let's find out.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. Okay.
Well, we'll follow up with that. If we hear anything more, we'll absolutely be covering it. So it was meaty. This is a meaty show today.
It was steak. It was like a steak and then a bottle of wine that tastes like a steak. And I don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully you guys like it and weren't like, oh my God, that was like into the weeds and I didn't appreciate it. Sorry.
It was definitely like a government education class today. That's what it was. Well, I think it's important. I do think it's important. And what we've always said about this show, the purpose of our show, we want to entertain you, but we also want to educate you on issues that we think that you should be paying attention to as a voter. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Scared like everybody else is too. Like we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't.
And so I think it's dumb of us to sit there and trumpet. Even let's say, all right, because Trump's a Republican, we're going to say everything's going to be great. No, I don't know that that's true. No. And so what we want to tell you is the information involved in it, and then we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't know. And there are plenty of concerns. Believe me, I heard from plenty of concerns. My own family, they're like, oh my God, this is a disaster. And it's like, well, hold on. I don't know. It might be a disaster. But if it's going to be a disaster, we should know why. And so that's our thing.
Okay. So hopefully we've kept you awake at least long enough. And I'm going to go get some more methylene blue down his gullet really quickly. So thanks again, you guys, for your time. And we will see you back here on Wednesday. Have a good one.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It Podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.